Well, hey guys, welcome to my channel, welcome to my stream, and another chapter working on this guy here, the GMC Syclone by Revell. Get that intro going, we'll get started. Okay, so we are back and we're going to continue, guys. You can see I got a bunch of stuff laid out on my desk here that I've been doing a bunch of stuff off camera. Speaking of cameras, we'll switch the camera to the overhead and you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, let's see. So we have our chassis all laid out and done. She's ready for the next step. Okay. Last time we finished off just putting on our A-arms onto the chassis there and there. Okay, so that's what we did last time. We finished it off there last time, okay? So that's that. Off camera, I painted up our front axle with all our different little variations of black, really. We've got the rubber black for the boots, for the CV joints going on there, and then some gloss black for the axle itself. Fun stuff, yeah. And of course we've got our front shocks that we put in last time also. That's sitting there ready to go. Off camera I did some painting on our interior pieces so that we can get this going and get that kind of ready to be assembled later. Okay, so going back to our instructions, our next step was to actually install the front axle. So let's take a look and see how that's going to go together. Okay, I'm just going to move this over here, and I usually need my knife. So let's see, how's our front axle supposed to go in? We're going to have the long side going towards me, and our shaft is supposed to line up with our transfer case. Nice little hole there. If you look in this angle here, you could maybe see if I get that. There you go, this big hole there, that's where our shaft is supposed to go in. Okay, so I'll kind of run that, see if it goes under here. There we go. First I'm going to try and line it up like this up here so I can see. Oh yeah, it's a nice big hole, so it goes in pretty easy. A little disappointing, the tiny little shaft. And then we've got, okay, so on the frames we've got a hole here and here, and we've got pins here and here, and that's supposed to line up. Now I just discovered that you can kind of do this, put it through that gap, and that gets us through. So the main thing is to get that in there. Let's get our holes lined up if we can. Drive shaft is located, but our pins are not. So that one's in. Oh, almost. Come on. The pin on this side does not want to go in. At all. So it doesn't want to go in, so I'm going to open up that hole a little bit. I'm just going to take my knife and just kind of carve on the edge of this like that, and maybe that'll help convince it to go in. So for some reason that side does not want to go in. And that actually did the trick. Just doing that little bit did the trick. So we're all lined up on our 3 points. So I'm happy with that. Let's get some glue. Just hold that with my finger. We'll get some glue here so it can be nice in his new home. And we'll put glue under here where it touches. And right here. There we go. Okay, our front drive shaft is installed. Now, one thing I did notice on my pictures of the real truck, there's a bunch of rust on the rear diff housing here. I did one coat. You might be able to tell it's a little bit of a different shade of black there because I kind of did a wash on it with some rust, but I want to do a little bit more, and I want to use a lighter color. I'm going to use this one, light rust. Just while we're working on this, I want to get a little bit of rust effects on that rear diff. I actually would like to get it on the front also, because having the rear diff rusty but the front is not at all, that doesn't make any sense. And it's not very realistic. If you've got rust on your front, on your rear diff, you're going to have rust on your front also. So I'm just going to dab this on here a little bit like this. We're going to slowly work up to an actual rusty color. But it's just going to be in spots, and so I'm going to do the same here. A couple of spots along the actual drive shaft. There you go. Just makes for a little bit more realistic. Like, why is the back all rusty but the front isn't? You know what I mean? Like, with everything all being the way it is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the way it is. Okay. So, that's going to be something I kind of build up and work on a little bit as time goes by. I do different layers, more layers. There we go. Okay. So, I'm quickly just going to clean up my brush. Okay, now I need a sip of coffee. Okay. So, with that in, with our front diff in, now we're going to do our tie rods. Okay, so that's part number 71. So let's get that off of the sprue. Let's find that piece. 71. Right here. Right there, 71. So let's get this guy off of here. Very careful to cut it in the right spots. There we go. Okay. Now this guy here, it's got a peg on each far end, nothing in the middle, and so it's just a matter of lining it up on here. So where is this going to go? It's supposed to go in this direction. It looks like it. Our pegs are supposed to go into these little rings that are on the brakes, right there and right there. So if I have this straight, this will line up perfect. And if I don't have it straight, then it won't line up. And I'll have to do something. I'll have to figure it out what I'm going to do. It looks like I have it straight though. My axle has come out of its holes, so don't do that. It appears that I have this pretty good lined up. You know, this is kind of silly, but could have done this while the axle was off the truck. There we go. I think I got really fortunate, and because it lines up perfect. I think I fluked out. No, I didn't fluke out. I meant to do it. It was perfect. You know, I'm such a skilled model builder that I got it perfect on the first try. Yeah, that's what some people tell themselves. I'm not that arrogant though. I know that you guys have seen I make lots of mistakes. Plenty of times I make mistakes on my builds. Put things on backwards sometimes. Okay, that's a little hard for you to tell. You can see how I've got that lined up and which direction it goes. Just like that, okay? Now, unless I've done something funny and it's upside down and supposed to come up from underneath, I don't know, but we'll see. It doesn't show that. It shows just going straight down on top of the things. So now we have our little frame thing. This guy here. And he is going to go on just like this. So, we'll fold this up. And we will see how that's going to go on. Let's turn this around. Match the diagram. And flip this over. Okay, so we've got what... There's no pegs in the back. There's no pegs. There's 2 pegs up front here. 2 pegs. There's some flash right there. Let's clean that off. Looks like flash from an ejector pin. A little bit here too. Okay. So we have 2 pegs, one up at the very, 2 at the very front. That's the only pegs at all. And I'm going to assume they go right into these 2 holes here. We'll try that out and see how it all lines up. So right off the bat, it's kind of hooked on my axle and pulling it up. Get off of there. Leave the axle alone and fall away. Thank you. It's wanting to pull my axle up. So my glue is not dried. So I'm going to switch glue. I have Tamiya extra thin, but this is the quick setting. See the different colored lid? This is the quick set. Or they call it quick type. It just cures a little quicker. And so I'm going to put some of this in here, in the hopes that it's going to hold that a little faster. Now this thing kind of felt like it wants to go in, but was hitting on the edges here. So I think I've got a little bit of cleanup on this edge to do here. So I'm just going to file this off. It's kind of hitting the back side of the rotor. So I'm just going to clean that edge up. Just a tiny little bit there. Other than that, it felt like everything was fitting in place like it's supposed to. I'm just kind of wanting to drop in there. I'm going to hold my axle down while I try and get this. Got some resistance here. I think if I really just squeeze on it, it might work and go in. The one side is in. This side needs to go back. There we go. Oh, we're in, but there. Yeah, she just kind of snapped in there. And we're in. All of our spots, everything is all lined up. Okay. We're going to take the advantage here and glue this right there and there. since we are actually touching the rotors, we're going to glue them onto it. Glue there. Glue there. And finally we got to put glue back here, across this bar here. There we go. So the fit is quite good, actually. I am impressed with how that all fit together. That was a good fit like that. Okay, goes together nicely. You know, a lot of times Revell has some problems with their fitment of stuff. In my experience, it's usually body parts that don't quite fit together and you get gaps and stuff like that. It's usually the case. So that is going to complete our chassis portion. So that with that done, it's time to move on to the interior. Okay, so the chassis is done. So I'm going to switch this out, which means we can now set this aside and we don't have to worry about touching it anymore. The glue's going to dry for us, so we're just put this aside. And we're going to work on our interior. Now, as you saw at the beginning of this, I've already got some stuff already pre-painted. Okay, so, but I do have to do a couple of things. For example, the shifter, I have to paint that. So let's grab that right now. Number 31. Let's find that on the sprues. Okay, number 31. Let's find our shifter. Is it on this sprue? It's got the steering wheel on it. That would be a no. That's a no for me, Doc. Here we go. It's funny, we've got our steering column on this sprue, but the steering wheel is on the other one. I'm going to just get the column off of here right now, since we're going to need it in a few minutes anyway. Okay, steering column, and here's our shifter. I can grab it. There we go. There's our shifter. Okay. Now we do have sun visors. This one of the rare things that they've actually done details, like put sun visors in for you to install. How many kits do you see where you install sun visors? You know, I'm going to say almost none. I'd say almost because, well, here's one, so there you go. You can't say none because they did this one. Right there. Sun visors, gonna need them. So get that ready. And I might as well get the steering wheel since we're gonna need that too. The steering wheel is right here. Here we go. Okay. So one thing I am going to do before we do anything else is I am going to spray paint the steering wheel with a semi-gloss clear. These steering wheels and these trucks, they were not leather, at least as far as I know. I believe they were just the standard vinyl. And that vinyl kind of is a bit of a, you know, it's not super shiny, but it's not matte colored either. Now I have this primered in the Mr. Surfacer. Just getting rid of the flash on the top of this. There's a bit of a parting seam where the two halves of their mold came together right along the ridge of the steering wheel, and it's created a little bit of a lip. So I'm just kind of fixing this so that we don't have a lip. The steering wheel is actually round. So I'll just go around the perimeter with my file and just make sure that we've got a nice constant edge and don't suddenly have this kind of a lip. And I can do the same on the inside. This is kind of a, you know, for most people this is an unnecessary detail. But, you know, I am getting paid to build this thing, so I should do my diligence in making it look as nice as I can. You know, sometimes good enough isn't just good enough, right? Okay, so with that, I am going to paint this. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get a tiny little piece of blue tack. Get some blue tack, this stuff here. Let me get my little piece out here. I got a piece I've already been cutting off of. Here we go. Blue tack. I just need a little bit. Tiny little spot. That's all I need. Just a little one. Twink. So go right there in the center. Okay. And even that is probably more than too much. And then I can just go doink onto that. There we go. Now I can get all sides. Again, blue tack. Okay, got that on Amazon. I'm sure some hobby stores have it. Now I'm going to use some semi-gloss. And for my semi-gloss, I'm going to be using Mr. Colors or Mr. Hobby. Sometimes it's Mr. Colors, sometimes it's Mr. Hobby. Premium top coat. This is their semi-gloss. It's kind of hard to find on their labels. It's right there, semi-gloss, which is why I write it on the lid. Not quite sure what's going on with my audio, so I'm going to have to narrate the rest of this as we go along. So we got the semi-gloss painted on the steering wheel. That little shot right there shows that it's really nice and glossy because it's wet paint. That's going to dry to a more semi-gloss type of thing. So yeah, so using the Mr. Hobby semi-gloss spray is a perfect solution for that. I'm not sure. Of course, in Canada, I can't get Tamiya spray paints anymore, so I can't even go and get a Tamiya semi-gloss spray. So I'm going to work on putting on the shifter. I decided not to paint it. I'm just going to leave it the plain black color as it came and molded in. It's a good enough color that it's going to match. So we're going to get that done. Put that in the center console there. And because the hole in the center console goes all the way through, that allows me to glue it from underneath, so I don't have to worry about touching any of my painted surface on the top. So we'll just do a little dab in there. And there we have it. Our shifter is in place. Just like that. In case you're wondering what the color is that my interior is, for the darker gray, I'm using the Tamiya LP27 German gray. You can see it matches there. That's the color. It doesn't match the lid because Tamiya's not good at matching their paint colors to the lids, but they get close. Then there's a lighter gray in the interior, and I use a different color that goes along the front of the dash, and it's on the upper side of the door. So the German gray goes along the face of the dash like that, and then on the top we have a lighter gray. It's the Tamiya's medium blue. It's an LP. What is the LP number? The number is LP. Or not, sorry, not LP, it's XF18, medium blue. And I think that matches the interior pretty closely for
for the gauges and the stereo, and there's a flat black panel that it all kind of goes on. So all I did was I just used Tamiya's panel liner and used that color. Also on the around the shifter and then the cup holders there. Just to use the panel liner in there, and it matches the real colors pretty good. So that's all I did for those. Then of course we have our switch panels, and I used Tamiya's XF54. For the seats, I did the red pin striping around the seats and the stitching that they use. First I did the white. I used a white pin striping around it so that the red would show, and then I did the red on top of the white, and then just kind of touched up where I needed to with some more of the Mr. Servicer 1500 black. And of course we got the decal for the Syclone decal that goes on the headrest there. Which the decals, of course, they're really old, from 1991 or something like that, and they're all kind of yellowed. The decals are going to be a little bit challenged. It's going to be interesting how they actually come out on the body of the truck when we get to that point. I might have to actually trim all of the clear around them and see. So we're going to look at putting the seats in, and I think putting the seats in, it's going to make it a bit of a challenge to get the console in if I put the seats in first. So I want to do the console first and then do the seats afterwards. The console's held in by those two little pegs that stick up. It just gives you a good guide to get it where it needs to go. So I put some glue on the inside of the console to minimize any glue that's going to squeeze out from inside. So just do that. A little on the front, a little on the back, and maybe a one or two on the sides just in case. Should be all right. There we go. And just drops in nice and easy. Perfect. So, I'm going to do the seats. It appears the seats are actually lefts and rights, although the passenger one, trying to fit this one, it didn't quite want to line up on to the channels that it's supposed to. So kind of fight with it a little bit. Of course, at this point, I'm totally forgetting that I'm supposed to put the door panels in first and then put the seats in. Fortunately, it wasn't a problem. So we'll discover this in a little bit after I've got the driver's side seat in. I suddenly realize I'm supposed to put the panel on first, but I'm going to fight with this passenger seat first for a little bit and then decide, let's see if it fits on the other one. And yeah, sure enough, it's going to. So pull it out and say, let's try this side. And all of a sudden it falls into place perfectly. Just like that. So yeah, definitely left and right on the seats, although trying to look at them and determine which one is which was really no way to tell until I was actually putting them in. So put some glue along the channels on the bottom, put that seat down. Go. And of course, if you don't feel confident that you got glue on there like me, you can run a little bit of glue up the back of it where it touches the back of the bucket, and we're good enough like that. Right about here now is where I realized, oh, I needed to put the door panels in. And I got really fortunate in that the seats didn't interfere with anything, and I didn't have to pull the seat back out to install the panels. So they just slide in, they just drop down. You just line them up on the sides, and nice and simple. because the seat was in there and I couldn't access the bottom, I just put some glue on the bottom of the panel like that. And just kind of slide it down in there. And then we're going to run a bead of glue along the top where it connects. Hold it in with a clamp. Don't really need to clamp it, but it's like a third hand, so helps me out a little bit. Just to hold it in place so I can apply the glue along that edge. A little bit of flashing I'm noticing on the front there, just to clean that up a little bit. Seems to be a common thing I'm discovering with this kit. Every time I assemble something, I suddenly discover there's some flash on there. But it's not too bad. I've had worse. See, the door panel just drops right in nice where it's supposed to go, so let's just do the same procedure with that one. Put a little bit of glue along the bottom. That, and then we'll drop it in. Without the seat, I can hold it with my fingers and then run the glue along the top there and seal it in. Put clamps on that panel too, just because that way I can just put it down and I don't have to keep holding it. And we'll switch gears and we'll focus now on the steering wheel. We're just going to put that aside and let that dry for a minute or 5. That's done. We got the seats assembled. We got one seat in, consoles in. Work on the dash. Of course, we got the instrument cluster already assembled onto the dash. I did that so that I could paint it all as one unit. So now we're going to do the steering column and the steering wheel itself. Steering wheel is dry. So touch, touch, touch. Yeah, it's touch. Nice and dry. And as you can see, it's dried to a semi-gloss black. It's not too shiny. It's not flat black. It's somewhere in between. And that's the whole purpose of a semi-gloss spray clear. So I noticed I got a little bit I would have liked that they had molded in the GMC emblem on the horn in the center, but they never did, unfortunately, and they didn't put a GMC logo in a decal or anything like that for it either, so we're just, that's just the way it is. So we don't get to see a GMC logo on the horn. So I don't have a brush that's small enough. I don't have vision that's good enough to paint a GMC logo that small either. So we got no detail on the horn button, unfortunately. So I'm just checking the fitment between the column and the steering wheel. The steering wheel does fit pretty good, so I'm not going to have any issues there. And then I noticed a little bit of flashing on the steering column itself, and so we're going to get that cleaned up. So just do a little bit of scraping on both sides of the column, and we're going to clean up the flashing on it so that it looks like a nice round column, just the way it's supposed to be. that cleaned up. I'm just going to do another double check here. Yep, looks fine. So the peg that goes into the actual dashboard has a flat side on it, so your steering column only fits in one way. So that's great. And of course the hole going all the way through is going to allow me to glue it from the other side. And I'm going to put the steering column on the dash first, and then we'll do the steering wheel after that. So just figure out how to hold it all together, get our glue in there. And that ought to hold it. So now it's just a matter of making sure the column is straight the way it's supposed to be, as it's not exactly a super tight fit, so it does allow for some wiggle room in there, and so it is possible to get the column in at a funny angle, and we try and avoid that. You can see the column there, got it kind of lined up the way it's supposed to be. We do the steering wheel on there now, but we're going to get that sorted out in a minute. Originally, he's going to put now with that column in there, we can take our clamps off. And we can get our passenger seat in. Now notice the passenger seat, although it sits flat and it sits flush, it also sits a little bit forward at a slightly different angle than the driver's seat. And like I said, even before, you look at them both, you cannot tell any difference, but yet it just seem to fit a little bit different. You'll see in a minute here as I put it in. I get that in there flush. It's still not, it doesn't sit in the exact same spot. It's sitting a little bit forward and a little bit reclined, just a little hair. You can see how the top of the seat is just a little lower on the passenger side, and it sits a little bit forward in comparison to the driver. But there we go. The seats are in, center console, door panels, all in and done. So the only thing left is the dash, but we got to put our steering wheel on first. So I was originally going to do a little dab of glue with the thick glue in the center there, but the brush on there doesn't really allow it to be nice and clean, so I'm going to just wipe that off there and use the extra thin, and then in the little divot I'll just fill that up with glue and then I'll put it on. And that's an easier way to get it onto the column without any glue squirting out to the sides or anything like that. So we just get it all aligned the way it should be. Get it as straight as possible. And there we go. Steering wheel is installed. You can see you got the angle right, and it's straight, and there we go. Steering wheel is done. Dash is finished. Double check our instructions. The dash just slides in on those panels there. So, having dry fit this before to see how it was all going to go together, the dash just kind of slides in between our door panels up into the switch panel, right about that spot, right there where I'm pointing with the knife. Just slides in right about there, in between. And right there on that side. And so the tabs that are sticking out on each side, that side there and that one there, they just line up on the edge of the door panel on the front, right where I'm pointing with my finger there and there. Just lines up right there flat. So you might have to separate the panels a little bit to get the dash to fit in nice and to slide it in there smoothly. So I just use my fingers and slide it apart a little bit to get it to fit flush and flat. Press it down to make sure it's down far enough, just like that. It should be flush along the top there. It shouldn't be sticking up proud or anything like that. It should be flat and flush. So you can put glue along that edge and there. So there we have it. Our dash is installed and glued, just like that. I'll post some pictures up on my X channel so you can see some still pictures of what the assembled interior looks like. So you can check those out. There'll be links down in the description box. So next, with that done, we're going to work on the top part of the cab on the inside. So we've got a couple of places. I did want to show you guys this little thing I discovered the other day when I pulled the thing out of the box and I was looking at it. Something had happened somewhere along the lines in shipping. That little piece right there almost broke completely off. And that was something that was like that even before I opened the box. So something happened to this kit a long time ago, and that thing almost cracked right off. So we need to address that right away before we do anything else. See, that side is absolutely fine, but something happened in the kit. Don't know what, but it obviously put enough pressure on that piece to actually almost break it off completely. It didn't break it off completely, but you know, now that it's like that, there is a danger that when you try and like put it back in its spot, that maybe it will actually break off. So try and be careful, bending it just a little bit by little bit each time. Try and get it just to convince it to go back into its spot that it's supposed to be. Then I'll put a little dab of glue in there and we'll hold it for a minute or three, and just to make sure it stays. And that's what we're going to do. Hold that in place. Let the glue do its thing. Don't have to hold it very long, but that's the way it is. There we go. It looks like it's holding, so we'll just leave that. There's a couple of tiny little spots there that from the bend, and have to sand that down just a hair to get that smooth again, but that's really minor. A little bit of flashing, of course, across the top of the fender there, but easy to clean up. So there you go. She's bent back into place, and she's not back. You can see a little blemish there on the side, but it's really minor. Once we get another coat of primer on there, something like that, sand it down a little bit, get some paint on there, you're not going to notice. So we're going to work on our visors. Of course, visors, not something you normally see in a model kit. It's usually already pre-molded in. Usually they're part of the actual windshield. But we got a couple of little pins that stick out on them right there and a couple little holes in the roof. So that's where we're going to line them up. So the little divot there, you know what visors look like. Every car's got them, so you can tell which is left and right and how they're supposed to go in. So I'll use a little dab of glue and put it in those two little holes that are in the roof there, and we'll try and line it up without smudging the glue around too much. There we go. Get it set in and just make sure it's aligned with my finger there. Go. Passenger side is in. Now, one thing I was thinking is the fact that they do have them as separate pieces in this kit does give you an option if you wanted to actually have the visor flipped down in some fashion to kind of show that, hey, it's actual another piece on there that's an extra detail. You could do that if you wanted to. Where you don't normally have that option on a normal kit, but this one you do. So just making sure that one's lined up. I did wind up moving that one just a little bit, so there's a little bit of glue showing up on the side, but it's such a small amount, and of course it is on the roof, so you're not really going to see it. It's one of those things. So yeah. There we go. So that's it for our visors. The next step is actually putting in the little dome light. So it's yet another little feature that they've put. It goes right in the back there. There's a tiny little nub that the dome light is supposed to sit on. Dome light being a clear piece, of course. Again, another little detail they put in this kit that you don't normally see. First I thought maybe it was going to be a chrome piece because the part number is 102 and there's some parts on the chrome sprue that are up in the 200, so I thought maybe it was going to be a chrome piece, but nope, they actually made it a clear piece. So I'm going to have to grab the clear sprue, as you can see. Looking in the instructions. Right in there. Just trying to determine my order of operations on what I need to do because I need to paint the whole thing. And how much do I assemble? And of course the windshield doesn't go in until later on because they have chosen for us to install the windshield and the rear window from the outside. Where most 95% of model kits have you install the windows from the inside of the cab, not the outside. But they have put these little channels on the outside. When you take a look right along that edge and right there, that edge too, that's where the window's going to sit down on. Unfortunately, that does mean you're going to have to glue from the outside instead of putting glue on the inside. It's going to be it'll be a little bit difficult, but it's not impossible, right? I mean, look at the box art. They did it for the box art, so that means we can do it too. So there we have, looking for number 102. There it is, right there. Clean up the little nub on that one side of it. Get rid of that. It's got to go right on the top of that little nub that's sticking up on the roof there. There is a tiny little notch in it that it needs to just go drop down over top of it, and that's it. Let's just drop it in and then we'll get it lined up. There we go. She's lined up in the spot she needs to be, so I'll just use some extra thin, just touch it there, and there we go. And just make sure it's in the right spot, lined up nicely, and there we go. And she's done. So the visors and our dome light are installed. So we look back at our instructions and we see what's next. They're talking about the firewall. So the firewall is supposed to be installed in the cab. So I'm going to grab that piece. That's it there. So determine how the heck does the firewall go in. It looks like it goes in from the bottom and it slides up inside of it. Just like that. So when you look at the firewall and you see that edge there, right, that edge there and that edge there, those line up with the actual fender wells right in there, those two areas. That's where you're going to be applying your glue. It's right along those two edges. And discover, oh, inside my wheel well I've got some nice ejector pin sticking out proud. I'm going to have to take care of that and clean that up now before we go any further. There we go, that looks better. So we're going to paint in there anyway, so leaving some scratches, not going to be a big deal. I'm going to paint in there and it'll be covered by the wheel, so there we go. So another little test fit on there. See how that's going to look. And I do want to add some wires along there. I want to add a little detail to the under hood of this thing, just for a little bit of realism. I want to put some wires along those things, those areas. There's quite a bit of wiring under the hood on the back of these trucks, so I want to just add those little details. Just a little bit of it, just a little something, you know. But I'm going to have to paint the firewall first before I add the wires. Otherwise, if I put the wires on now before it's painted, then I'm going to wind up spray painting all the wires with the rest of it, and I don't want to have to paint the wires afterwards. So I'm going to paint the firewall first, and I'll probably do that off camera. Get the firewall painted the gloss black so that I can then just work on the firewall by itself and add some wires to it after, and then I won't have to worry about anything else later on. I also noticed a little bit of flash on the inner fender wells there where it's going to line up with the firewall, so we've got to clean that up to get a nice flat surface for the firewall to glue against. Because it doesn't really glue along the top of the cowl there. It kind of just glues to the edge of each fender well. that's something we're going to take care of later on. Like I said, I'm going to have to paint it off camera, and we'll take care of that at a later time. We'll paint the whole body and everything, get that all painted first, and put the firewall in afterwards, after we're all painted and clear coat and everything like that. So, camera froze again. Unfortunately, having some camera issues today, and as you can see, this one's totally frozen. But yeah, there's not much we can do about it, really. It's just the way it is. So, yeah, don't forget, guys, hit that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We're just gonna have to leave it like this for now. And thanks for watching, thanks for coming out. That's just how we're gonna have to leave it, like this, because this is the only working camera for this particular video. I'll have to figure out what the problem was with the other one. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching.